Welcome back to the podcast, Greg. Good to have you back.
Thank you for having me again. Seems like
Um, y-
viewers were interested in the spiritual side of potentially hydrogen and whatnot.
yes, definitely, and me too. So we're gonna talk about that today. And maybe you want to start with the Lourdes in France, the place, how it is kind of it is very known, but it's also a very sacred place.
Yes, in Lourdes, France, so obviously the water is supposed to be very healing there. And they did discover that that water has high levels of molecular hydrogen. I don't think that people have realized yet the level of spiritual connection that hydrogen has really to spirituality and even a lot of things to do with God
Mhm.
and the spirit. And so, simply put, like water itself is actually very spiritual. If you look at some of the ancient verses, even in the Bible, it says that the voice of God is like the sound of many waters, is what it says. And there's a lot of verses about water in general and how spiritual it is. But what people don't seem to understand is that water has two parts. It's two parts hydrogen, because it's H2, which is molecular hydrogen, and it's one oxygen, right? So we're talking about hydrogen and oxygen. And that's what water is made of. And what people don't realize is that when you separate hydrogen and oxygen, hydrogen actually ascends. It's literally what I call the ascension molecule. And oxygen doesn't ascend. Oxygen actually drops to the ground like a dead person would, because oxygen oxidizes. So technically, there's a connection between oxygen and death and hydrogen and life. But both are really needed for life. I mean, we do need death. Like, for example, when plants die, they feed the soil for more new life, to come through. And so there's a very big connection. And on top of all that, if you look at the ancient scriptures, also at the very beginning, you'll say something like, "Let there be light." And to me, it's pretty obvious the light is coming from something like the stars or a sun, because the sun is a star. And that's what gives us all our light on planet Earth, right? And that sun, all the stars, they're all made of hydrogen, by the way. They're all hydrogen and helium, but helium is hydrogen. It's a form of hydrogen. So basically, the stars are also they're so important. I don't think people sometimes understand how important. Obviously, we wouldn't even be able to have any life on planet Earth without the star. So that's really important to know. And very interesting things come from the stars. Like, for example, do you know, I don't know if we ever talked about this, but do you know where gold is made?
Well, we dig it up from underground. I that's all I got.
So if anybody actually researches it, you'll find that gold is actually made in the stars.
Oh, okay.
So it's literally created in what's called dying stars, otherwise known as
Mhm.
supernovae.
Yes.
And the gold literally rains down on planet Earth and it's in the soil. We dig it up. But it was made out in the universe, you know? And what's even more interesting is that the stars are made up of almost entirely hydrogen. So is hydrogen creating gold? And gold is very interesting because gold, if you put some other metal, there's metals that if you put it like iron, if you put it in salt water like ocean water, it's gonna rust, right? Many things rust or oxidize. If you put pure gold in the ocean, it's gonna stay like that. It's not gonna rust.
Yes.
And so that makes it very special because rust is death. And spirituality has a lot to do with what we call life. that's why, again, there's many verses about it. I mean, there's even verses like Jesus saying things like living water. You know, there's a lot of talk about life, eternal life, things of this kind of nature. So hydrogen is very, very special.
Well, we know hydrogen is very healing. Have you found it it that it had different effects on your way of thinking, the kind of things you could perceive too?
Absolutely. I've actually been very, like, kind of cautious about talking about it because it sounds kind of weird. But basically, you have to remember the human body, in order for it, this is my own experience and personal opinion, because when I was really sick, one of the things I tried to do was to purify my body the best that I could. So I was trying to, like, not eat stuff with chemicals. I was trying to purify my blood. I was trying to get my body at the best condition that it could be. I did not expect to have spiritual experiences while I was doing this, but I did. One of them was actually, it's kind of interesting actually. It's this book. There's a person that did a special type of cleanse on me,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember when she was preparing me for it, she told me, she said, "I want you to write down all your experiences and what you're feeling and things of this nature." And I thought it was kind of weird. I'm like, why am I going to write down what experiences? I'm just going to get cleansed out. I don't think I'll be having any experiences. But I followed her directions, and sure enough, many days later, I started having these very profound experiences, and they were so spiritual. I even had, like, it was like almost like an angel
Mm-hmm.
appear to me at one point, which was kind of crazy. And it showed me a lot of things and taught me a lot of things. And I was so shocked. I literally couldn't believe what was happening. And then I asked her, I said, "Where did you learn this method on how to do these types of cleansings that you do?" And she said some other woman had taught her. So I went to go look for that other woman. And then I found out that somebody else had taught her and that it was something that had been passed down. And then she said, "Just so you know, it's in this book." And I was like, "It's in this book?" So I started reading the book, and the cleanse that I did, and a lot of the things that I learned about how to help my body heal, a lot of that information is in this book. And I've even had experiences where I would actually travel. So there's another world, by the way. Um, it's kind of the spirit world. And I have actually been there. I've gone there. I've seen a lot there. I also, a lot of people don't know. I don't know if I talked about it much. It's kind of a tough subject to talk about, but I did try to end my life many times,
Mm-hmm.
and I did OD, so I overdosed,
Mm-hmm.
and it caused something to change in me, and I got glimpses of what they call the other side. A lot of people call them NDEs, which are near-death
Yes.
experiences, and so I did eventually really go to the other side, and it's a whole journey. There's a whole journey that I went through, which I probably won't go into detail today, but I went through this whole journey, and then that journey, there's many. It's almost like there's different places that it takes you to, and then eventually it took me to literally like the universe and the cosmos. And the reason that it's interesting is because the things that I saw over there, I'd never read it in a book. I'd never really seen or heard anything like it. And what shocked me was at the last 4 pages of this book, whoever wrote this book has definitely been to the other side because they described it perfectly. And it was unbelievable to me because this was very different than any religion. This is very different than anything I've ever heard. Though, interestingly enough, in Japan, I was at a kind of like a grocery store of sorts. And they had this giant, like, painting. It was really big. And when I saw it, I was shocked because it was one of the images, it was one of the things that I saw when I was on the other side. And that's one of the first times that I've ever seen anything like that. And I thought, who painted this? You know? And so what I did was I asked around and I said, who painted this thing? Because it can't be an accident. You know, it was too perfect. And then I found out it came from a guy named Kukai. So I don't know, have you ever heard of Kukai, Japanese man?
No, it's the first time hearing it.
And so Kukai, I did research into him. His story is so interesting. He saw the spirituality, the deep knowledge and wisdom about water. And see, in Japan, one of the reasons that I really enjoy living in Japan is because they have hot springs everywhere. And for me, hot springs are actually very spiritual. In fact, if you look again back to things like the Bible, Jesus got baptized in water. There's something very magical about water. In fact, I had some experiences too. If you go into the water when you're in certain meditative states, really wild. It's very, very, it is very deep and spiritual, deeply profound. And that's one of the reasons that I want to work more with water and hydrogen. And you know, here, the Japanese made an interesting discovery about water. Have you ever heard of this book?
Yes.
So they discovered that water has memory. They discovered that it responds to beautiful thoughts or ugly thoughts. There's some ugly pictures in here too, but these are mostly beautiful. And water has a connection to obviously hydrogen. I mean, the word hydrogen actually means that which becomes water. So it's a really big deal. So what I ended up kind of noticing is that hydrogen also appears to have memory. And hydrogen is so tiny that the more I use it, see, your body has a 7-year cycle. I don't know. Are you aware of this?
I've heard about it, yes.
So,
Can we first go a little bit in about your communications with water? I would be really interested to know, like, because you just talked about meditating in water and in the hot springs.
yes.
What kind of well, I think communications is maybe the right word instead of
Yeah,
insights or
this is what I would say.
something else.
First thing, it seems important
Mm-hmm.
to prep the body,
Mm-hmm.
the mind, and even your heart. So these three things are really important in order to, I believe, begin to communicate. And I believe that what you're actually communicating with is the hydrogen. Water is mostly hydrogen, by the way. And so one of the interesting things that I learned, and I kind of did it by accident. I didn't really do it completely on purpose. So this book talks about a 7-year cycle of the body and how the body needs to be prepared for deeper spiritual practices and experiences. And so I did that. And that took a long time. I've been doing it for like 10 years.
Sounds
So
about
I've got 7 years. And the 7 years is important because this book is so old. This thing is like, the writings come from the hidden archives of the Vatican, according to what they're writing in here. And it's interesting that they describe the 7-year cycle because now, with all our latest science, we know that we have a 7-year cycle now. So they must have known thousands of years ago, which is pretty crazy. And what I mean by a 7-year cycle is, for example, your skin is not the same skin you had 3 to 6 weeks ago. So there's a constant death and a constant new life. And your body, every part of your body is like that. Every part of your body has a death and a rebirth, and it takes 7 years roughly for everything to be renewed. So for everything to have died and everything to be brand new. And so during that time, there are certain practices. One of the ones that's written in that book is about not eating meat, actually, is one of them. Because meat, according to this book, meat is death. It's a dead animal. And according to this book, you don't want to take in things that are dead. You only want to take in life. So that's one of the practices. And on top of all that, as I was doing this, I noticed that hydrogen appears to have a 7-year cycle in the way that it affects your body throughout those 7 years. After using hydrogen for probably about 3 or 4 years, I started having much more spiritual connection. It was crazy. And so I've been getting a lot of visions lately, like a lot. In fact, I was on a show actually a few times because I had made predictions.
Mhm.
It's like I kind of know what's going to happen. There's a lot of things that I know are going to happen. And so I made certain predictions. And there's a show called Upfront in the Prophetic where they have people who they believe can do prophecies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was on that show because I made some prophecies or predictions and they came true. And the lady couldn't believe it. So she's like, I got to have you on the show, you know? And I have more. I have a lot of them that are, there's a lot of stuff coming. And a lot of it has to do with spirituality. The church, unfortunately, the Catholic Church, the Vatican, I'm hesitant to talk about a lot of it because I think it's going to be very painful for a lot of people to see and experience what's coming. It'll be okay, but people will have a very hard time at first. It's kind of like, if I could think of an example, like what if somebody told you that the person who you think is your mother is not actually your mother? You'd be like, what? It would affect you,
Yes,
profoundly. It's going to be a little bit like that, but that's many years away. That's not going to happen right away. That's in the future. But the biggest point is going to be around the end of 2032. So, end of 2032 is going to be a very big, it's going to be the end of almost like this cycle that we have begun. It's already begun. And obviously, America is very much at the forefront of this. Even people like, I know people have a lot of arguments and different perspectives, but even people like Elon Musk.
mm-hmm.
Elon Musk, in my personal opinion, he's actually a prophecy. He is he is
Do you,
not a person.
uh,
I mean, he's unbelievable. I don't think that there's one person on the planet who could do what he does. If not one person can do this, it's amazing because there's a lot of people on the planet. So,
it is.
and so all these things are part of what's going to be coming. I just been doing my own thing because everybody has different roles,
Right.
you know, and and so the simple fact is, back to hydrogen. You know about the pineal gland in the middle of your brain.
Yes.
So a lot of people don't know that your brain is protected by something they call the blood-brain barrier, and the blood-brain barrier doesn't actually protect the pineal gland,
Okay.
but yet it's in your brain. It's very unusual.
Mm.
This is why it's so important that your blood is actually very clean. This is one of the reasons that there is evil in the world, sadly. And this evil in the world is part of what's tried to put chemicals in food, chemicals in the air, chemicals in clothing. I mean, literally garbage and chemicals in everything, even in our medicines sometimes. And I shouldn't, I probably should be cautious. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm not making any claims. And so that was done on purpose because the more toxicity and poisons that are in your blood, it affects your mind. When things affect your body and your mind, they can even affect your heart and the way that you feel about things. You know, there's a lot of people saying crazy things right now. I literally can't believe what I'm hearing. Like in the world, there's literally so many people who are calling for, and I'm not going to say the person's name, but there's specific people that are calling for death. They're like kind of hinting that they should go and basically remove people's lives. And to me, that's very, very violent, obviously,
Yes.
and terrible. And there's a lot of humans right now. I don't know if anybody, if you've noticed or if others have noticed, there's a lot of people who are brainwashed in the world right now. And so that confuses people, and then they don't know the truth. And that's exactly when it's easiest to take advantage of people. And so it's all done by design. But this eventually is, there's going to be a shift. We're literally living one of the most amazing moments in history right now. I don't know if you're aware of that, but this is, are you
It's
aware?
pretty great. I sometimes wish things were different, but I it's an
Which,
interesting time.
which part do you wish was different?
I want to say the hearts of people. Um, I would wish people had the courage to find out for themselves, use a little bit more curiosity in life. Yeah.
Well, you're very sweetly. I can tell that from you. You got a good heart. You know, here's the thing. When there is struggle, the body and the spirit respond. So to give you an example, gravity, you know what gravity is, right?
Yes, yes.
Gravity is actually a struggle for the body. But that's what actually makes your heart stronger, your bones stronger. Because if you go to outer space and there's no gravity, your bones get weak, your heart gets weak. And so there's a famous saying that says, that which doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. Have you heard this before?
A million times.
So I know that it's a hard time because we're literally at a very low point, but we're about to do this. You know, we're about to go through a beautiful change. But in order to go through the beautiful change, we're going to have to go through something very ugly. You know, when I traveled to the other world,
Mm-hmm.
and I traveled more than once, I always have to go through an ugly part first. Always. I don't know why, but that's always what happens. It reminds me of a Bible verse that says, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. You know, but I always have to go through that place before I get to the good part. Let me tell you a secret about happiness.
Sure.
Did you know that I've been studying and researching happiness and philosophizing and looking for it since I was probably the age of around 7 or 8.
I didn't know.
I've been very, very passionate about trying to find and understand happiness and what brings it, what makes us truly happy. Not temporary happiness, like a nice car or money or something. Something that lasts, you know, forever. And I've been researching that for a long time. And I'll tell you one thing that I discovered.
Mm-hmm.
Gratitude brings some of the biggest joy and happiness. But how can you be grateful for something if you've never known what it's like to be without it?
It is true.
And so we sometimes have to go through certain painful things in order to, when we get them back or get these things again, we're going to appreciate them more. And there's going to be a greater happiness in the future.
It is true. It is, I know.
And I know that sometimes it's easier said than done or experienced, but that's what we're about to go through. And we're about to be so grateful. We're about to have so much light. And I do strongly believe that, quote unquote, there's a very strong probability that I think God is coming back.
What do you mean with that?
I don't believe in, and I say this from my experience. I'm very cautious about talking about this part too, because a lot of people don't like this, so I just don't talk about it. I was very fortunate that I was able to go to the other side and come back. So I didn't die and then never came back. I got a chance to come back. That changed a lot of things. And one of the things that I was fortunate enough or lucky enough to experience was I got to meet God. And that was huge. It was the biggest experience of my life. Now, and I don't expect people to believe me, I know that's a crazy statement. People say that. I don't really believe other people when they say it because I met him. I know what he looks like, what he sounds like, where he's technically at. I mean, I understand, but when I met him, I didn't even recognize him.
What do you
I didn't
think?
even know I didn't even know it was him when I met him.
Who do you think? Who did you think he was?
I didn't know what it was.
Mm.
I didn't know that it was him at first. And the reason I didn't know, and this goes, I believe, for all humans, we have an idea in our head about many things, including God. So we think we'd know what he would be like or what he might look like. Like we have an idea. Many people might say, oh, if I met God, I would know. I don't think so. Because luckily, I actually had a witness to this, by the way. So it wasn't just me. It was me and somebody else. We both got to meet God, as crazy as that sounds. The person who was with me was very Catholic. He didn't recognize me either. In fact, he turned to me and said, what is this? Like, this is crazy. What's
Yeah.
going on? And what I realized is all these ideas and beliefs that we have, we're wrong about so much of it. The actual truth is very different than what we believe and how we live. Very different. And what surprised me
Mm-hmm.
is when I read it in this book, because in the last 4 pages, he describes God and he describes him perfectly. It's the only book, the only place I've ever seen that was actually correct.
What's this book called again?
The Essene Gospel of Peace.
Mm. Great.
The whole book is basically about Jesus. And these were old ancient scrolls that were translated. And it shocked me. And what's even more shocking is in the last 4 pages, Jesus is describing the other world. And he's doing it perfectly. Like, it's amazing. None of this is in the Bible. This, like I said, these were in the hidden archives of the Vatican. I don't think they wanted people to know about this. This man translated it because he had access. He got lucky. His father worked in the Vatican. And when he was dying, he gave the translations to a woman he trusted and said, release this, and I want everybody to have access to the truth. So never charge more than $1. And if you notice here in the corner,
$1.
$1. Because he wants everybody to be able to have access. And all the money that these make is used to make more books. But I don't believe that anybody would know that this is true I didn't, unless I had gone to the other world. That's when I realized that there's a lot of information in this book that's probably true. It really blew my mind. And one of the parts that he says, if I were to read it to you, it's
Yes, let's
really
hear it.
interesting. It's really interesting because what he actually says, let's see if I can find it actually, because I wasn't prepared to read from the book. But it's interesting what he says because he says, let's see here. I mean, everything he says is so, and it's so poetic. And it's totally correct. So right here, it says this. It says, think on the streams that are born in the desert after a sudden storm, and the roaring sound of the waters as they rush past. Truly, this is the voice of God, if you did but know it. That part is so important because it says, if you did but know it. Like I said, when I met him, I didn't know it. I didn't know it was him. In fact, it goes more because it literally says, for it is written, in the beginning was the sound. And by the way, God has this specific sound. So he was accurate about everything. This whole thing is unbelievable to me. But he basically says in here somewhere that you could literally be before God and you don't even know it's him. Because by the way, he doesn't look like a human. He doesn't look like a person. And I think everybody expects him to look like a person.
Of course, we would like to see ourselves, right?
But he doesn't. He doesn't look like a person. And so it's very, very shocking. It's so outside of your ideas and beliefs. And I think that when quote unquote God returns, because right now we are literally like children without a father. You know, you could have a mother and that's fine. But I think we all know, even from psychology, we know that it's very important for children to have both parents. And when you're a child, I mean, you're happy if your mom's there. Maybe you're happy if your dad's there, but you really want both of them together. You can feel it as a child, you know. And that's more on the flesh world. In the spirit world, you also want both your mother and father. So your mother is actually the earth. The earth is your mother for the body. The body is made of flesh. So this body was born of the earth, by the way. And this is even in the Bible. It says that we were risen from the earth, and they took water and mixed it with the earth, because I'm telling you, hydrogen is the closest thing you'll get to God.
I just like I was thinking about what you just read, and I wanted to ask you. So it seems like the impression I got was that it's kind of like not the spirit of water like on earth, but kind of like a
You're very close, my
it's like it's hard to describe. Like how do I say this? Um, it's not even pure hydrogen, right? Life-giving, but I don't know how to describe it.
The word life, and just how you said life-giving, that is what comes from God. It's like pure life. And hydrogen is like that. In fact, hydrogen is the purest substance known to man. There's nothing more pure. So it's the most purity. It's also the ascension molecule. It literally ascends. Hydrogen like flies like an angel. That's its wings. It's also the light. So the light of the world, the sun, the stars that light up the heavens are also hydrogen. And when you bring hydrogen, so this is a really interesting thing they discovered in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
You know that there's an ancient verse in the Bible, for example, that says life is in the blood. Are you aware of this verse?
Not as the verse per se.
Okay. But
Yes. But that's
the word,
kind of the concept. Yes.
yeah. And so it says life is in the blood, and life has everything to do with spirituality and God. Okay. And when it says that life is in the blood, if I were to put a rubber band around my wrist where blood can't enter my hand, do you know what's going to happen to my hand?
Die off.
It'll die. So blood is bringing the life. Okay. What nobody realized until very recent, when somebody has a stroke, oftentimes they're not getting blood supply to a part of their brain. If you don't hurry up and get blood supply to that part of the brain, they will begin to die.
Yes.
And then that's when people can't move, they're half their, because of their brain not getting life. The Japanese discovered that if you inhale hydrogen gas
Mm-hmm.
and you've had a stroke, the hydrogen will go to that part of the brain with no blood, and it'll keep that part of the brain alive.
Wow.
Nothing can do that.
Amazing.
Why can it do it? Because hydrogen is the source of all life, just the way that God is. Without blood. And what you have to understand about blood is the blood is actually basically like water. And blood has gases that are dissolved into it. So we're always breathing in. Right now, we're breathing a lot of oxygen. We breathe 21% oxygen. That's a lot. And when you go to a doctor, sometimes they check what's called your oxygen saturation levels in your blood. They're measuring a gas that is dissolved in your blood. So one of the things I do for obviously my health and for spirituality is I dissolve hydrogen into the water and I drink that water. And I also inhale the hydrogen gas. Of course, I always tell people, don't do it incorrectly, please. Like I don't use these type of bottles. Don't use any of these. They're all from China. They all use what's called plated metals, membranes that I'm not a fan of because of what I've seen in lab tests. And they send electricity that affects the water. You don't want that. The Japanese discovered the best way, safest way, and most effective way to do it. And I know that if people ever want to see that, the official company's website's HolyHydrogen.com. And I think I even got emails from people in Italy from the last podcast we did. So I would just tell people, I'll just tell them right now, if they want one of those machines, either ask the company or contact the company in Italy that can maybe get those machines, because there was a lot of people in Italy who are interested in this technology.
The shipping was very easy for me.
Oh, was it? Oh, well, there you go.
Just the international one, like the HolyHydrogen site. It was there after a few days. Very easy.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
It'll be easy for people. And so the hydrogen water goes into in your gut, your system, your blood eventually. And hydrogen is the source of life. I think that's also why they found it to be very what's called anti-aging. So they found that too. Anything that's anti-aging is really good for your health, basically. And hydrogen carries that life. I want to develop more technology actually in the future, but I need the proper connections, because I believe that there's a device that I want to make. It would be very expensive though, probably $30 to $50 million. And I believe that this device could actually help the human body live for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
That'd be really cool.
I think it would be really great. And I also think that this device will help people be able to travel to the other worlds.
But it would do everything.
I don't know about everything, but it can. It won't bake bread.
No, I mean like it would be good for the body and like also um, let's
And
call
yeah,
it help you learn.
yes, because when you go to the other world, one of the most beautiful things about it is that nobody lies to you over there.
Mhm.
You're actually like naked. Everything is exposed in a very different way, not just like your clothes, but like very exposed. Your heart and everything that's in it is exposed. And everybody's like that. All the angels and beings of light over there and other beings that I encountered, everything's, you can see everything. In this world, you can hide so much. You can act real nice to somebody and you think that they're being nice, and inside maybe they're just trying to trick you or something. So you don't know the truth here. And then people try to tell you what the truth is. For example, maybe religion says, hey, give us 10% of your money and we'll give you the truth. And I think that in the very near future, or if people can travel to the other side, everything becomes to be very clear and very simple. And you can't be lied to about what to believe. And they can't lie to you about God if you've met him. So, so it's very different than this world.
Do you think it would be more beneficial for people to develop that kind of ability slowly, or better, well, maybe better is not the right word, but like, let's use better for now. Better to use this kind of machine and then see it. Like, what do you think is the difference between those and how it would impact the person?
I think it's a very interesting question because it's very difficult to do it without assistance, without some form of help. Like, trying to think of a good example. It's kind of like, well, if you have parents,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a mother that shows you how to maybe cook, take care of yourself, many different things that a grandparent can also teach you about wisdom and life. But if they don't teach you, it's going to be really hard for you to figure it out. And it can take a lot of time. And so this device will make it easier because part of the process. So I'll tell you one of the secrets because I can't say all the secrets yet. The other world obviously communicated with me, and there's things that they don't want me to say yet. But I will reveal them in the future. But I'll give you one of the clues. Did you ever notice that a man that everybody calls Jesus? Did you ever notice that in the whole Bible he never once said, "God be with you"?
I never read the Bible. I don't know. I'll trust you in
Well,
this
it's
one.
very interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and anybody can comment below or whatever. But he didn't really say, "God be with you." Now that's interesting. But he did say something many times instead of saying, "God be with you." You know what he used to say? Oh, wait, you didn't read the Bible. Um, he used to say, "Peace be with you."
He?
Peace.
Peace. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
So,
Peace be with you. Mm.
yeah. So many, many times in the Bible, he would say, "Peace be with you." He said this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't you find it a little strange that the book is called the Essene Gospel of Peace? And the reason I bring that up is because that is a magic word. And the
Peace.
most people won't understand. Yes, it's a magic word because The reason Jesus is telling you peace be with you is because through peace is how you actually get to God. That's the secret. But people don't understand what that really means. And they also don't understand how to apply it, how to make it happen. There's a secret on how to do it. And the body, some of it I can't. I just told you one of the secrets right now.
Yes, yes. What you can say, what you can say.
But being, yeah, I'll give you one example. Let's use water as an example. Have you ever seen a lake where the water is completely calm and still and at peace?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what it looks like? It looks like a mirror. It literally reflects everything in the heavens and the sky. You can see all the stars. You can see the moon. Everything. But if the water moves,
You can't see it.
can you still see everything?
No.
That's the secret to finding God. In fact, there's even a Bible verse where Jesus said, "Be still and know I am God." That's a Bible verse that he said. But when he's talking about stillness, he's talking about peace. Peace is the secret. But people, this is why the evil in the world wants people to be so busy. You never have peace. And if you never have peace, you'll never find God. And if you don't find God, you'll never find the truth. And if you don't find the truth, you'll always be believing a lie. And if you're always believing a lie, you'll never find true happiness. And if you never find true happiness, it's a sad life.
It is.
I don't know if it makes any sense what I'm telling you, but
I think I got the
and I
message.
know because okay. And so, I know from actual experience, that's why when I was at around 7 or 8 years old, I was so sad. I felt so empty inside. And I went to church, I didn't feel any better. I got baptized, I didn't feel any better. I ate the little cookie that they give you at the church, didn't change anything. I went to different churches. I studied many different religions, by the way. None of them helped me. Buddhism's a little interesting because it just kind of helps you self-reflect.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people don't know that technically Buddhism's not actually a religion. A lot of people don't really know that. But beyond that, I ended up having to go on this path on my own because the pain was so much for me. That's one of the reasons that I started doing things that were very harmful to me, because I was trying to actually end my life. I didn't want to live like this. It was too painful. But that pain is what helped me find the things that I have found. And it's even part of what helped me have a longing for the truth, which eventually led to God, which I couldn't believe. It like I said, it's the biggest moment of my whole life. I was so grateful to get to meet him. How many people get to meet God? Like, I've never met anybody who. There are people who've claimed it, but when they describe him, they're wrong. I don't actually believe them. I'm not trying to be like rude or mean, but I know what he is like. So I know if somebody were to meet him, they would describe him correctly. Actually, the other person who was a witness, there was a person who was with me who did get to actually experience and meet God also. So there is another person. So there's two of us. And he described him correctly because he was there. So it was a very interesting experience. But that'll come out more in the future. There's so many things that he wants for us. And, a lot of people don't understand, including myself when I was very young. I would pray and say, God, why aren't you here? Why don't you come here? Why don't you help me? I would pray to him a lot. And I didn't realize that he showed me his hand is always there reaching out. It's us who don't know how to reach to him. He's not failing us. We're the ones that are failing. But many changes will come in the future that are going to change that. It's been a long time. Humanity has been without a father for a long time. And I believe if people are honest with themselves, they can feel that. We know something's missing in our lives. And he will come back. So things are going to be very interesting in the next less than 10 years. It's going to be very interesting.
Looking forward to it. At least the way what you were describing now made make sense. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. And you don't give any money. There's no 2%. There's none of this.
No
it's
money.
going to be for everyone. No money. God has no use for money.
Direct access.
There's just no need for it.
No strange intermediaries.
Exactly. And that's exactly why I want to also build this device, which he showed me. So he's guided me. He's helping me. I want this device so that it can be easier for people. Once it gets easier, there's going to be what's called an awakening, a revelation. Like the last chapter in the Bible is called Revelations. And when this happens, when more people start to wake up, there's going to be almost like a number. That's why my YouTube channel is called Uprising 144K. That 144K stands for 144,000. When there's a certain amount of humans that wake up, it's going to make it easier for everybody else later. We won't need the device later, just at the beginning. There's actually, I'm trying to remember, there's a really beautiful verse that comes from another ancient scripture, and it's one of my favorites because it says, I wake up and the world wakes up with me. I discovered that my sadness and my pain that I had as a child, I discovered was coming from the whole world. Everybody's carrying pain and sadness inside their heart somewhere because we are all connected. We are all one. That's the way that it is. And so that's why, even in books like the Bible, it says that you should love your neighbor as yourself. Excuse me. This is very important because when I went to the other side, I saw something. I saw that anything you do to hurt anybody else, you're going to feel it later. You might feel it now, but some people really close their hearts, so they don't feel much. But it's not going to be forgotten. You will carry the pain that you inflict on others. You're going to carry that pain and you will experience it, and it will hurt a lot. It's not pleasant. And it has to happen before you get to meet God. So there's going to be a lot of pain in the world because, as you said, all the pain that people have created, we also call it sin. The Bible calls it the sin.
Yes.
All the sin of the world, the pain of the world, people are going to have to go through that. They don't just get to go to God and everything's great. You have to go through the ugly part first. And you need to wash it away. There has to be a certain level of forgiveness and repentance. And it's going to be really hard. And you have to do it. Otherwise, you don't get to go to the next place. If you don't do that, you go somewhere else until you're done dealing with all of it. So it's a very interesting process, but good things are coming. Good things are coming.
I think
that's a positive, beautiful thing.
It is. I think this is a great place to end the episode. Any last words, maybe?
Okay. The only thing that I would tell people is be kind to others. Do it from your heart, though. Don't do it from fear. Don't do it because religion tells you you're going to go to hell. Do it out of good places and try to understand that people look at life differently than maybe you do. And that's okay. You have to love each other, and just, be kind and loving and respectful. And also try to be kind to yourself and your body. Try to drink really good water that's clean. Eat the cleaner food. If you can get hydrogen in your body. It really has this profound effect, like I said, on the pineal gland, especially when you're inhaling the hydrogen. So that would be my message. It's a message of kindness and just be good to one another, and good things are coming. So if you want to start preparing by being better and being good, because otherwise anything that you're doing that is bad and not good, you're going to pay the price. It's very sad, but you're going to. There's no way to escape it. And so with that one, I guess I can leave you with that.
Thank you for coming on.